Welcome, Council. And it's a beautiful day, and it's supposed to be getting more beautifuler as the week moves forward. And
It's a good word.
I like it.
Let's hope it does.
I want to again welcome the media and Chandra Dahl with YPM.
Mayor Schow, I apologize if there's some noise around us, but they are working on the roof tonight, and I don't want to stop them because we need our roof fixed.
My watch is right on, so I will call the meeting to order. And again, welcome to everyone tonight. Welcome, Council, and welcome Corey from Channel 32, Administration, and Chandra Dahl with YPM, and she has a report for us here in a bit. So, Councillor Dahl, if you would offer the invocation for us.
Our Father in heaven, we, the town council and administration of the town of Cardston, come before you this afternoon to beseech thy Spirit to be with us as we meet together. May we have good discussion concerning town matters and then be united when it comes time for a decision. We're grateful for this opportunity that we have of serving the town. May we be faithful in our duties and obligations, is our prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. I have no additions, and so I'll call for a motion for adoption of the agenda. Councillor Court so moves. Any discussion around the table? Seeing that, I will call a question. All in favor? Motion carries. The agenda is adopted. Chandra, again, welcome. And the podium is yours.
Sure, so these are the two groups there.
And while Marian is passing out this information, I want to applaud the audit committee for your work. You've been through that exhaustive process of going through the 2012 financial statement. And the chair will honor in due course here in just a few minutes a motion to accept the audit report, and discussion can follow before we vote on that. We want to commend Councillor Edmonds, Dahl, and Creed, and Councillor Kronen, although Councillor Kronen was away on some other work during that final process. Chandra, it's all yours.
Thank you. So last week, Doug and I were down and we had met with your audit committee, as you had mentioned, and what we did was we did a pretty comprehensive review of your financial statements. So this evening, I'm not going to go through them again. That's one of the bonuses of having an audit committee is they can relay any important information back to council. But if there are any questions regarding the statements, please let me know. As part of the review, though, I will just quickly go over the auditor's report. This is basically our stamp of approval on your financial statements, so that's really what you have us do. So the audit report hasn't changed from the prior year. The format is still the same. The second paragraph talks about management's responsibility for the financial statements, and that it's their responsibility to make sure that they're presented fairly. Our responsibility as the auditor is through performing audit procedures to gain enough assurance that we can conclude whether the financial statements materially present the town's activities. Our opinion is that the financial statements do present fairly in all material respects, so it is a clean audit opinion that's here. And then I have two letters that I would also like to go through tonight. But before I get into those, was there any questions regarding the financial statements based on
On your note number 19, I have a question. Let me turn to it. It says, uses the phrase double recorded. And as I read that, that implies that the town may have double recorded that, and I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I guess the wording is a little bit misleading in that. What had happened during the year was that when the TCA was being transferred to to the new system, it was determined that the town had recorded roads that actually belonged to Alberta Transportation. So in that case, it was doubly recorded because it's been recorded in Alberta Transportation and in the town of Cardston.
But we shouldn't leave the impression that the town double recorded it. I would take those words out, the double recorded out.
Okay, we can make that change.
Chandra, maybe you will address that. What I was interested was really the schedule of the consolidated financial statement, when you really have the schedule of changes in accumulated surplus. I was just interested to know, I understand that a lot of funds were just moved from unrestricted to restricted. I have no problem with that. What I was trying to understand is the current year funds used for tangible capital assets, and I couldn't remember which tangible capital assets those amounts represented. Maybe Marian remembers.
For additions this year? Well, I don't have the specific projects, and
Marian may have the detail of those.
Right, those would have been the capital projects that were approved in the budget process.
Which were
were
still with
completed.
water, they were still with water projects, or what were the other?
We had one major sanitary sewer
Right,
project was
I
one of
remember
the major
that.
projects. We would have had some electrical
Okay,
upgrades. There was some purchase of equipment or vehicles.
okay.
So I'd have to look back at the budget to tell you all.
I was
But
trying to remember, but
Yeah, I think
I could not
the
find.
thing to remember is that that records assets that were
Purchased,
purchased or
yes.
completed in 2012. So
Yeah.
there may be some in the budget that are carried forward to 2013 that won't be recorded until they're completed.
yeah, so those were those large projects
Yes,
through
yes.
2012, right? Thanks.
On note number 6, Chandra, you say interest on long-term debt amounted to $8,800 and change, and total cash payments were $86.87. Does that mean that we've had some accrued interest that has not been paid?
Sorry, let me just get to the note that you're looking at.
It's 8.
No date.
Yeah,
No,
so
they-
the difference between the interest on long-term debt and then the total cash payments, that would be your interest accrued.
Accrued.
So what we do is we do an accrual up to December 31st, so we recognize all of the interest that relates to the current period, and we would have done the same calculation for the prior year. So what you actually paid, when you paid interest in January, that may have included interest that related to the prior December. So what we do is we make sure that those are calculated in the correct year, but the cash payments might not necessarily.
That you got 12 months interest in there, and it's not necessarily all paid.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you kindly.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, just for clarification on the first question that Councillor Dahl had about the
Double recorded.
double recorded, if we just remove the word double, are you okay with that?
I am fine with that.
Because it was recorded.
Yeah, I know it was recorded because I've seen it many years ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
as long as, I just want some
But
clarification.
I don't want it to imply that the town has recorded it twice.
Correct, okay.
Sorry.
Can I just ask you, maybe Marian has the answer. Marian, in the investments, there is a large chunk of investment, which is a new investment this year. Note 5. That's a TD investment at 5763, 634,000. And I was wondering, was that a grant money that was there? Which kind of money was that one?
No.
I can answer
Yeah.
that.
Okay,
During the year, what had happened was we had several investments that last year were classified as short-term investments because they
Okay.
had a maturity date
yes.
for 2012. Those investments matured and were reinvested into long-term investments.
Okay, all right.
So that's where those new investments have come from. They're just investments that matured in the prior
Okay,
year.
so they were rolled over in a different fashion.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but just for council to understand, those really are our long-term investments, and those are in place to fund reserves.
Okay.
So it's, very seldom will we see under our long-term investments any operating loans or cash.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
There's two letters that I have to go over tonight. The first one is just the post-audit letter, and that's the one that's the multiple pages. This just basically summarizes our audit procedure that we performed and just relays some information that we believe is important to I'll just jump into the matters to be communicated. The first one just refers to significant deficiencies in control, internal control. While we did encounter a couple of deficiencies, nothing was significant. So it didn't impact our audit opinion, but we have disclosed those in the Point 2 talks about illegal acts and fraud. We just like to reiterate that the audit is not intended or designed to detect fraud. However, had we, when we were performing the audit, encountered anything that indicated potential fraud, we would have definitely looked into it. During the 2012 audit, we didn't encounter any activity that made us believe that there was the third point just refers you to note 1 in the financial statement for all your significant accounting policies. The next few points just has to do with basically working with management, management's judgments and estimates. So we just note that we didn't have any disagreements with management. We had full cooperation of management. There wasn't any scope limitations where we were unable to satisfy ourselves with evidence. We didn't find any contentious financial statement issues. And then the final point talks about emerging issues, and I won't go too in depth with these because, as you can see, they don't become effective for several years. The first one becomes effective on April 1st, 2014, and then the following ones are later than that. But this just kind of gives you some information of some potential changes to the way that the town will have to do some accounting in the future. So, for example, in April or effective April 1st. There'll be some changes with regards to contaminated sites and how we need to account for those. So that's just basically in for your information. And as we get closer to those, we'll definitely give management some direction as to what we need to do to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row, I guess, to make sure that we're accounting for those properly. The last page of the post-audit letter is just the schedule of unadjusted differences. So during the audit, if we discover any errors that are small that we will not be adjusting for, this is where they get included. So for a carry forward, we have a utilities payable. Just based on the way I believe that Fortis was billing us, was it Fortis? It was very difficult to kind of cut off what related to services for the prior year and what related to services for the current year. And I believe they've improved their billing process. So what we did was we went back and determined what should have been an accrual for the utilities payable last year, and that's what we've set up here. But as it was immaterial, we didn't feel that it needed a prior period adjustment. And then the current year error is a TCA error, and I'll talk about that a little bit when I get my management letter. But what this was is just a few of the assets are being amortized at a rate that's not consistent with your policy, and it resulted in a small error. But again, it wasn't significant enough to adjust for, so we just included it on this statement. Is there any questions on the post-audit letter? So now I'll move to the management letter. So this is our letter each year where we give management recommendations as to what we feel could be improved. We only had two points this year. The first one just related to the tangible capital assets, and as I noted, some of the useful items, the assets set up were not consistent with the policy. So as a result, the amortization is not correctly calculating. So we just recommend that each asset class just be quickly reviewed to ensure that the useful lives for all of your assets are in line with your policy. And your second point relates to the TCA software. So during the audit, it was noted that the new software was not operating correctly. And as a result, there were a number of errors, resulting in the inability to rely on the system. The schedules were not reviewed prior to being submitted for the audit. During the audit, however, they did go through correct these errors and issue us new corrected schedules. So we were able to do our audit work on those. Unfortunately, it resulted in some duplication of work. So we just recommend that any time there's a software conversion where we're switching to a new system, we just recommend that it be tested and reviewed properly before the schedules are submitted to the auditors, just to avoid that duplication of work.
That's it?
That's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As a Mr. Chairman of the Audit Committee, are you prepared to move acceptance of the financial report for 2020?
That would be Maggie, but I'll do it for her. She doesn't opinion. I'll move that we accept the audit as with the slight changes in the wording.
Okay. Any discussion or questions on the motion? Sounds good to me. If there's no questions, everything's been answered suitably. I again appreciate Councillors Dahl and Creed and Kronen and Edmonds on that audit committee. And again, the very important function that you perform. And so I will call that question for approval of the 2012 financial statement. All in favor? That carries. Chandra, and maybe I should direct this question to the audit committee. Is there any reason in any way, shape, or form for anything to be brought to our attention, any concerns, any cause for alarm, any thing that would require that we would maybe go into an in-camera discussion on anything that would require FOIA protection, at least on the protection of privacy?
I reviewed what you did because I was not there, so I made a lot of notes and I compared it with last year when you gave us a great disclosure of the whole of the audit. And really, I find everything to be in line with what we did last year, so I don't have no concerns of any sorts.
Thank you, Councillor. So Chandra, thank you very much.
I have one question.
For your professional expertise, as obviously with Doug Mundell in your firm. Councillor Dahl.
Chandra, what can we do that we're not doing now to help reduce the fee?
Well, I think it's just kind of included in the management. Definitely any time working papers are reviewed prior to make sure that everything's working, that definitely saves extra time. For the most part, your systems in place are very, very good, and your people are doing a good job. So I mean, really, the only snag we had was with the TCA and just the duplication of work on that. But for the most part, I don't know that I really have any additional recommendations for your team. You know, their budget is becoming a very, very solid piece of analytical tool that we're able to use for our audits. The systems and the working papers that were provided are good and easy to follow, and your staff are very, very helpful, so it does make...
Maybe at our next meeting of the audit committee, we can just discuss that matter, so we can maybe help you and reduce our fee a little bit.
But
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Marian, please convey Council's appreciation to your financial team, if you would, please. Noel and Ryan, and so that they know that they are appreciated and that they do fill an incredibly vital role, because again, they look after the taxpayers' dollars, and it's just that simple. I mean, we make policy and so forth, but those folks that manage the dollars are very critical. Councillor.
what I want to add to that comment is that the town is in a very healthy financial position, and we have an extremely low debt ratio, and I find that a healthy sign for a small town when everybody is scrambling to be sustainable in a time where the grants from the government are dropping in value and in amount and in types of grants that we can get. So I am really pleased to see that administration had the foresight to prepare us for the drop in grants by helping us to understand that we had to have utilities that were sustainable and no longer rely on excess taxation. So thank you for having had that foresight.
Thank you very much. I think, Council, you can take credit for wise fiscal management, because again, we make policy, and I think, at least I would hope, that our ratepayers, our citizens, our voters, our taxpayers could somehow be aware of the fine job that you have done in this last 2.5 years to be fiscally responsible. So thank you for the general work that you do in all aspects of that, part of what we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you for letting me, for having me tonight. I just have I just need 2 quick signatures.
Deputy Mayor, Councillor.
I'm sorry about that. Of all the nights.
So I have copies of the final statements, but what I'll do is I'll take them back, make that amendment, and then I'll send them,
Thank
and
you,
then
Jen.
Marian
The chair would like a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting April 9th. Councillor Kronen so moves. Any comments on the motion? Councillor Creed.
Just had a couple, one question and one correction. On the first page, it says in the body of the minutes, Councillor Dahl moved for third reading of this bylaw 1619 emergency. In the margin, it does say allow for third reading. I caught that later, and but when I first read it, I wondered if in the body it should have said allow for third reading instead of third reading, to know that what we actually did.
Yeah,
That we didn't,
you're right.
that we didn't do third reading, we didn't defeat third reading.
Thank you very much.
The other one other question on the next page under emergency medical services. When I reported the Chief Danny Melvin that we were working with his contract, it indicates, it says that he has not had a contract since the ambulance service was taken over by Alberta Health Services. That's not quite correct. The actual fact was that we deemed it unadvisable to continue contracting from Alberta Health Services for the services of a fire chief, which was the case. We were contracting with Alberta Health Services for our fire chief, and we felt it would be better to contract directly with our fire chief so that we have control over that.
But Councillor Creed, there was no contract signed, so for the fire portion, there was no contract signed.
That's true, but we did have a contract with Alberta Health Services for a fire chief, for the services of a fire chief. That was the $50,000 that we decided we weren't going to pay.
But it was not signed.
Yeah, that's true. It wasn't signed. So I guess that was the question, whether that's exactly accurate or not. But
Well, if we talk about a contract not signed, that is correct. It was not signed. So under that's, it was functioning in transition without a signed contract.
That was from the beginning of the year.
1st of January.
From the beginning of the year, Alberta Health Services had to actually taken over the health portion prior to that. So that question, anyway, that was my question here.
Well, that was a gray area that we tried to
That it might not
solve.
be exactly accurate as far as the intent.
So do we want it reworded or not?
How do you want to have it read then? What do you think would be more accurate?
Well, I thought it would be more accurate to say that the board felt it was more advisable to contract directly with the fire chief, with Danny Melvin, rather than a contract with
Okay,
Alberta
I see
Health
what you're
Services.
trying to say. You're trying to put it back in the frame time of last month.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to do at this point in your comments.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
did you catch that?
I've got it.
Okay, and Marian's got it as well. Okay, so any other comments or concerns?
No, I understand what is.
As amended, I will call for approval of the minutes. Minutes approved as amended. Okay. Now, we are into 6A. It's the bylaws 1619, and it does require third reading. Is anyone prepared to move third reading? Councillor Dahl moves third reading of bylaw 1619, the bylaw governing the emergency management agency for the town of Cardston. Any discussion on the motion for third reading? I will call that question. All in favor? Third reading carries. Bylaw is now in force. The next item has to do with the golf course, and Marian will speak a little bit to the golf course. She met with a representative of the golf course a few days ago. So Marian, if you'd like to give us some background there, please.
Just find my notes here, I'm sorry. As the mayor said, I met with Dean Sommerfeld from the golf committee, or the management committee, regarding some of the concerns that had been addressed to council, and there seemed to be a bit of miscommunication between information that the committee was speaking to councillors about and our understanding of some of the issues. So I contacted Dean and asked if we could have a meeting and involve some of our staff, and specifically the concern was around the cost for repairs to the irrigation system because of the removal of the screen or the bypassing of the screen. So we had Dean, myself, and Bart Atwood and Greg Adams in the room, and we discussed that issue. Basically, I guess their original understanding, the management group's understanding, was that we in some way had made an adjustment to that screen that had caused the issue. They thought that maybe that took place in 2009 or 10, and that it was something that we had caused to be a problem for them. What was determined out of that meeting was that actually that screen has been bypassed since the early 2000s when the system was put in place. Greg said that his understanding was that Stan Bishop and Steve Heather, when they were employed at the golf course, had bypassed that screen because it was too small. He never recalled the screen ever being used. Last year they did try to reinstate the screen because of, no, sorry, not last year, 2011. Because they were having to do some repairs on the screen, or on the irrigation system because of the screen. And that's what caused the water to shut off then, and so then they determined that they would bypass it again. So with that explanation to Dean and his understanding of that, we felt comfortable going back to the management board and explaining that, you know, the town had not done anything to cause that issue, and that it was you know, we talked, of course, about a number of things, that perhaps those costs, they were concerned that those costs of repairs weren't disclosed to the management group at the time they took over the course. My comment to that was that we disclosed our operating costs, and included in those operating costs were the repairs that had been ongoing. So we maybe didn't talk about it specifically, but we did not, you know, not disclose any of that information to them. So at the end of that, he was comfortable to take that back. One of the questions he asked is if we could pay for disaster repairs. A couple of things came out of that. Disturbing in here, whatever they're doing out there. If they could
They are on the
change,
roof.
they could change to a different location for
Ask
a few
if they can
minutes.
do something different.
So with the payment, the discussion led to, you know, it's kind of a wash. If we pay them, they owe us approximately the same amount. And that we were waiting for Ernie Borak, who is the engineer for the disaster recovery program, to come. They wanted to do an on-site evaluation of the work that was done before they were prepared to approve the invoices that were submitted. So Nolan got a hold of Ernie's office today again. He was expected back to work on Monday, and he will be in the office tomorrow morning, and his assistant has assured Nolan that he will call us in the morning and set up a date or have at least some further discussion. So I anticipate having more of an answer from disaster as of tomorrow. As I've told council before, if we choose to proceed with the payment of that disaster funding, we just run the risk that we may not be fully reimbursed for the invoice if disaster funding for some reason determines that it should be reduced in some way.
Having said that, though, we are kind of responsible for that hole, whether disaster
Yeah.
covers it or doesn't cover it. We're still kind of responsible for that.
Yeah. And part of our discussion as well with Dean is the management group took on that project because they felt that they had some expertise and some manpower to be able to do that. And what we should have done, what I should have done, is actually had them give me a cost estimate, run that by the disaster funding people like we did with all the other projects. Once we knew it was approved, then we would move forward with it. And entered into a contract with them just like we did with other companies. So, you know, if there is work to be done in the future, we'll make sure that that's handled differently so that both parties are protected for that.
I think it's a very wise move.
I guess the question is, if they don't fund it as much as we think they should fund it, or at least what they think should be funded, who eats the difference? Is it us or the golf
Well,
course?
and that's what council needs to determine, right? So if you're prepared to absorb the difference, then there's no problem writing the check. But the point being is, you know,
Okay.
somebody's going to have to, if the disaster funding doesn't recover the full amount.
Councillor.
I think, for me personally, I would first of all like to see what the provincial government is willing to fund. Then we'll have a better idea what we're dealing with financially.
And I
Let's
really
start to
do
that.
anticipate I'll have something by, you know, early next week, I
Yeah.
hope. Which,
I mean,
you know,
I understand the need for cash flow, but we also have money owed to us. It's not as it goes only one way.
I
It has
understand
to
that.
go both
Oh, I
ways.
understand.
So I think if we have at least the ability to wait to get the full facts, we're more able to make a decision right there and then, instead of mulling it over and over and going nowhere.
Well, quite frankly, the timing of us, if we were to do that, paying them for those outstanding invoices, all they're going to do is turn right around and pay their lease to us. So it's not a big deal as long as we, and I believe we did make this decision, that we would not charge late fees for
Yes,
their rent. I think we
correct.
made that decision.
Yes.
There's
So
not been a motion put forward to that effect.
Oh, that was a-
I know there was some minimal discussion regarding that,
okay.
but it has not been put forward as a motion, so we would require that as a motion.
Okay. Councillor Dahl?
I think that if the damage to the screen, or the screen taking out, was done before the management group took over the golf course, I think that's our responsibility.
No, it's never been used, Councillor.
Never been used?
No.
No, that's the whole point.
So we
Marian-
we didn't change the operations of the golf course significantly from when we owned the golf course. or
That's a whole
managed the golf course.
discussion.
Okay. Just some thoughts. Our mandate, we are not in the business of generating revenue from leasing campground, golf course, and so on and so forth. In my mind, our mandate is to represent the taxpayers, the citizens, in the most responsible fashion. we happen to own a campground that we have an operating agreement with, a certain body. We own a golf course that we have an operating agreement with. And I can promise you that we have sat down on occasion and revisited some of the terms of the campground contract. It doesn't just come up every term for renewal. I think we need to look at the end result and determine what's the most responsible fashion to handle the operational agreement on the golf course. But it's important that we understand some history. If you go back a few years, I can promise you that in 2 years, back 5-6 years ago, there was some management upheaval to where we would lose a manager mid-year. So there's a lot of issues that are involved here. Marian, you had a comment?
Yeah, if I could just finish
Oh,
my
I'm sorry.
presentation about our discussion.
I'm sorry,
I think
go ahead.
we'll get to some of the things that you're talking about, if that's all right.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, moving on, there was one other issue that was discussed, and there's a pump that prior to levied irrigation being turned on, they're accessing irrigation water out of our reservoirs, and there's a pump there that loses its prime, and so Greg has to go up and, man that occasionally. So there was some discussion there about how do we deal with that, and what came of that was that it's an old pump, and that's possibly why it loses its prime. Bart thinks they probably took it from down at the old irrigation site at Lee Creek at the golf course and put it up there, and it's, so who knows how old it is. They have rebuilt it, but I guess they're having problems with the prime still. So the question was, well, who should be paying for that? And so I've asked Greg if Greg would track the hours that it takes him to do that, and perhaps we would look at that, covering those costs. And also I've asked Bart to get some costs on the purchase of a new pump. So that's in progress as we speak. The next 2 items kind of go to what the mayor was talking about, is there some possibility of some leeway in that current contract? A lot of the discussion was around, we want to continue to have an amicable relationship with the management group, and there appeared to be some feelings between the 2 organizations or certain members of each organization that I think is important that we deal with that. And so Dean and I talked a bit after the other staff left about what could we do to mend those relationships and make sure that continues in a positive way. So one of the questions Dean asked me to propose to council was, understanding that last year was a unique year for them, and there was conditions that they had to deal with that were out of their control as well as out of our control, that Mother Nature threw at them, and so they asked if we would consider for 2013 as sort of a gesture to recognize that last year they did have some difficult situation there, that we reduce the rent or the lease payment in 2013 to $5,000 from the $10,000. We would still then have the $5,000, which would cover some of our costs that we have associated with the course, with insurance and some of those things. So he asked if I would present that to council. The other thing that he asked is sort of as a gesture of goodwill on behalf of council and the town, is would we consider annually providing grading of the parking lot, just once a year. Right now, if they ask for that to be done, which we've done for them in the past, but there's a charge to that. I anticipate that it would be the grader with a man for a day, and he could have the parking lot done. So that was a question that was asked. So those are kind of the 2 things that they put forward to ask if I think they're, well, Dean at least, I don't know where the management group stands right now, but after our discussion, Dean was comfortable taking back the expectation that they wouldn't receive payment for the screen issue. But he wondered if there was something else, these other two things could be done to kind of put out a bit of an olive branch there.
Marian, thank you very much. And I do appreciate the fact that you did have that meeting with Dean and Greg Adams and Bart Atwood. What's the potential that that issue with the screen is going to recur? Because if they leave the screen in and it gets plugged with debris.
No, it's not going to happen now, because if you recall, what happened is they came to us and asked if we would purchase a larger
Oh,
screen.
gotcha, right, okay.
They purchased it in 2011, we reimbursed them in 2012.
So that
Yeah,
issue has been remedied.
That issue has been remedied.
Councillor Kronen.
Marian, I was curious to know, this year is the first year that the management group is facing to have to pay the $10,000 for the education tax. And because it's the first year, and maybe they didn't expect that either, since in the past it was not charged to them, I wondered if instead of looking at those items of reducing the rent and all that, if the town would be best to pay for that $10,000 of education tax and let them worry about the rest.
If I might, they are anticipating paying the school tax.
Okay.
They were aware of that, and yes, Dean
Okay,
did.
all right, so there were...
He did
there were-
acknowledge that.
Okay,
That they were
because
expecting
otherwise
to
I
pay
thought
that.
that would be another
Yeah,
way
he's-
to look
He said
at
they have
the...
budgeted for that.
Okay, all right, so then please
Thank
do
you.
that.
Thank you. Any thoughts,
That was
Councillor?
another way to look at it.
Yeah, Councillor Creed.
Speaking of other ways to look at it, on the hail damage question, this was what they were concerned about as far as giving them a break on their, and there was repairs to be made on the hail for the hail damage on the golf course. I suppose some loss in play, which can happen, but we have in the contract, I'm just trying to think to sort of not violate or to try to maintain, the nature of the contract. They are allowed so much for capital, repairs or capital projects, improvements, and so possibly in allowing that, we could consider that. Maybe it's a little of a stretch, but consider that as a additional capital project that they did in allowing them, some extra break on the lease for this particular year.
The last couple of years, actually since they took over the contract, we haven't actually required them to submit invoices or I guess statements as to what capital improvements have been made. And Dean and I had that conversation as well, that, at the end of the golf season, we need to invite them to council with a written report with evidence of what that capital repair has been. But, I don't know if taking it off of the capital investment affects their cash flow as much as perhaps they would like it to. I don't know if they'd be open to that
I mean, just-
suggestion.
I'm thinking it'd
The
be
thing
the
is, they're
same
going to
thing.
want to improve the course,
Yeah.
so they're probably still going to be putting X amount of dollars into capital improvements.
Well, I'm just saying, increasing that capital allowance for that year,
So saying they're putting 20,000 in, and we're only going to take 5 in cash?
something like that, yeah. That was my thought.
Any other comments or concerns?
Well, yeah, you know what, I think they're doing a great job on the golf course for looking after it, but I think this is going to be a reoccurring thing that's going to happen. I don't think that they either don't have the pockets or probably won't be willing to put the money into the course that's needed to keep it and running properly. And I think you're going to see them back in council again and again and again when things happen, so, you know, like I say, they're doing a good job, but, you know, I don't know if, you know, I don't want to keep seeing them in here year after year, seeing that they can't pay for this or they can't pay for that, and have the taxpayers bail them out. I'd rather see the course go up to someone with some deep pockets that can, you know, that can take care of it or even put it up for sale, so, you know.
I have a comment to make on that. I can assure you that that group is not lacking in deep pockets. You could maybe question how deep they are, but I don't think there's any question. They're businessmen, they're experienced. For me, it's a question of what is our tolerance level as a council in dealing with some of these unforeseen concerns and issues. Councillor Dahl and Councillor Court.
Number one, we can't control the weather. Number two, we have got to be extremely fair to the citizens of the town of Cardston in the golf course arrangement. And I think what Councillor Smith says could be a true thing, and I don't think we want the golf course management committee back at our doorstep on a regular basis.
Councillor Court.
There's I guess another way of looking at this. I don't know if they're making money out there or not. I don't know if their books, if we ever get a chance to see their books or not.
No,
I
that
do know
was the
that
deal
the golf
that we
course
went.
brings in money from outside. When people come here, they don't just golf, they do other things here as well. And I'm not suggesting this, I'm just throwing this out, that I know McGrath, at least I don't know if they still do or not. McGrath at one time, the town council would give their golf course $25,000 and said, don't come to see us again. Take the $25,000, use it for what you need on the golf course, and then we're done. Now, I don't know if we want to go that route or not, or Councillor Smith's concerned about them coming back every year, wanting this, wanting that. Something like that might save that problem. We subsidize the swimming pool, we subsidize the skating rink. We don't subsidize the Agrodome that much. That's just a thought out there. If we're getting tired of them coming back to us after everything for this side or whatever, give them $20,000 and say, okay, that's your allotment for this year, and don't bother us again. That's just a thought out there, and that's what McGrath has done in the past. I don't know if they still do that or not.
Councillor Kronen.
I really think that we have to appreciate that, yes, last year was extremely unique. And maybe what they're proposing, a reduce of 5,000 and the grading of a parking lot, maybe it's an olive branch that we should offer. Now, I also appreciate the fact that it is a business, and they are in business, and they're in business to make money. And it should be with their own investment and according to the lease that we have. But considering the unique situation, maybe we would be well to have a healthy relationship, but put conditions. For example, Marian spoke about when there are some cost estimates that need to be done. Let's have them done so that we don't have to say, well, they say, we say, type of thing. And that is too late now to fix that. So we have to deal with it in the best manner we can. Marian's doing her very best regarding the work that's being done on a golf course, and I appreciate that very much. But those are costs that we didn't expect. Were there, we were hoping they were reasonable, and it seems to me that at this point the insurance or the government is maybe looking at it with an eyebrow raised and saying, looks too high. And now we have to deal with that issue because we didn't have a town cost estimate for those repairs. Therefore, what do we do?
They had an engineer come and be there
Right.
with them when they did some work. We
Right.
don't know lots about that.
So we don't know. The only thing we know that at this time there is a question regarding the thing. So I think if they intend to pay their bills, and we pay our bills, and if we accept their solution for this year only, I can live with that. but the bills have to be paid.
Councillor Edmonds?
Well, I think if we cut the payment to $5,000 and we grade the parking lot, that's still far less than what it's been costing us in previous years. You know, this is like a golden egg right now, and I, for one, certainly don't want it back again. You know, maybe we're gonna have to make some concessions to them from time to time, but it's still a lot cheaper than what it was.
In
But I-
tens of thousands of dollars. Councillor Smith?
Well, we have a
Well,
contract.
going into this, when the lease was signed, the only cost that they didn't know about was the damage that occurred to the Corsair.
Right.
They knew about every other cost that they had to pay, that they had to come up with the $15,000 for capital, and then they had to come up with the $10,000 for that. So they knew that these costs were there. In previous years, they had bad weather, they had bad weather as well, which created a deficit and, which created a loss for the town or whatever. You know, we're going back into the same thing. They knew exactly what the costs were. They're having some bad weather. You know, they had some hail that closed them down, but so did a lot of businesses. They're running this as a corporation. You know, what did they take out of it? Did they have a shareholder's loan? Did they take some money out to repay back some of the shareholder loan? You know, were they getting paid for it? Like some of that money that should have went, instead of going to their pockets, should have went to pay their bills maybe, so. Like, I don't know where they are with that, but they know, and that was signed, what, 2 years ago? A year and a half ago or something, so. You know, there are some unforeseen costs, and I don't have a problem, you know, helping them out with the insurance or the disaster funding. I don't have a problem with that. But a lot of the other stuff, I got a real problem with that, so I don't want to see tax dollars going to bail out a business. Tax dollars don't come to bail me out if I got a problem. I mean, they want to run this as a corporation, as a business.
Yeah.
That's how they need to run it, so.
Councillor Dahl?
I concur with what Councillor Smith says. These are businessmen. They know what they're doing. They knew what they were getting into. They are anxious to go there.
Councillor Kronen, you alluded to something that might be palatable for you. Would you like to make that in form of a motion?
I can put a motion forward that we accept a reduction of $5,000 for the lease for 2013 with the grading of the parking lot.
But would that be 2012? Because they haven't
Well,
paid 2011 or 12
It's
yet, have they?
2013 we're talking about, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yes.
They owe
It's
12 and
2000.
13 now.
Yeah,
So you can reduce it for
2013.
2012.
So how much will they owe in total? 15,000 plus? And when is it supposed to
About
be paid?
27,000.
When are they supposed to be paying? Like, what's the?
10,000 March 1st is the lease payment.
Right.
So they
And
haven't
the
paid it this year.
7,000, we
No.
did that work back in May, I believe, last year.
Mhm.
But see, they've been out of pocket for the repair on 16, I think.
Yes.
They've been
To
out
the-
of pocket for
To the
that.
green on 16.
Yeah.
So
And the
council,
green has been terribly damaged, so I can appreciate a reduction because when I look at the state of my grass, and I'm not a business, but I use grass to be a business, hail has really damaged the course, no doubt.
so Councillor Cronin has a motion to forgive $5,000 for the 2013 lease amount, plus pave the parking lot.
Grade the parking lot.
It's graded.
Thank you. Yeah, it's to grade the parking lot.
Well,
Is it annually?
I think, how much, yeah, I think as, we could, that could be the olive branch that we
You want
give
to make that
them.
an annual?
What would the
We
cost
could do
be?
that.
Okay.
It's about
You're looking at
$7,000.
probably a day, I'm thinking $1,000 if you used current machine time.
I would say let's
Machine
do it
time.
annually.
You know,
Okay, so any discussion
out of
on,
pocket expense, sorry,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, out of pocket expense would simply be wages and fuel for the job, right?
So is it just for the 1 year, the 2013? Or
Would-
what do you?
The 5,000 will be for 2013, and then we could create annually the parking lot.
So they still owe 10,000 from
Yes.
Yeah,
last year.
that is not.
Okay, so
It's just a one-time
that's the
thing.
motion.
Yes, that's
Other
right.
questions, Councillor Dahl?
I think we need to maintain the parking lot.
Well,
It-
no
it's
doubt
our-
about
I don't
it.
have a problem with that.
It's our property, and I think we should maintain it.
Should.
Okay, Council, are you clear on the motion then? Okay, I will call, sorry, comment?
One comment before
Yeah.
the motion, and I'm fine with the motion, I think it's good, but just commenting on some of the previous comments that were made, and I want to hark back a ways back, because I remember being in town and having discussions when the town purchased the golf course from the county, and there was frankly some of us that didn't think they should do that, and the answer we were given was that, well, the golf course makes money. It didn't.
Probably never has.
But, so I guess having said that, I can't bind what future councils will do, but I feel like if we can't at least break even on the golf course, if it can't at least be then we should put it up for sale.
That's kind of my tolerance level as well, quite frankly, Councillor, is that I think but Marian made a good point too, that we have some inherent costs that we have to maintain. Being
Yeah.
insurance, we have to insure our
Yeah.
aspect of it. Okay, so any other comments on the motion? Does anyone need it reread? I don't think so. I will call that question. All in favor? Thank you. I don't need to call for opposing because it was Marian.
Mr. Chairman, if council is in favor of us waiving the penalties on the outstanding
Yes.
invoices, I need a motion
I'll
of
make
that
that
as well.
motion.
Councillor Court moves that we waive any late penalties on the rent for 2012, I guess, and other payments, right?
Outstanding
Well, it's-
invoices.
But
All
It-
due to.
That's, I need clarification.
Just late.
Just late charges, just late charges. Given the fact that they're out of pocket on the repair, and the repair's taken a little while,
That's part of the problem.
And the insurance didn't pay yet.
okay.
Hmm.
So any discussion on that motion? Did I get a motion?
Penalty
Yes.
on outstanding invoices, is that what you,
Yes.
to what date as well would be nice to have in the motion?
How far back do they go?
Well, they go back as far as March last year.
I'd make that motion
That's-
include that then.
That's when the first payment was due. The penalties probably go back as far as June, because we invoiced
90 days.
in April, or May, sorry.
Okay, so the motion then is to waive or forgive any late fees on invoices going back to March of 2012.
Can I?
Councillor Smith had a comment.
Sorry.
So when are we going to get a payment from them?
That's, sorry, that was the question I was trying to have clarified, is to what date? If they pay by what date?
Because they can't keep going on like this. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, but
I really
by the
think-
time they get their
Like, when are they going to have
Personally-
to?
Throw your date out there.
Personally,
disaster money by the time.
Personally, if we put 1 month,
Well,
we're
but
doing
what-
fine.
But what about up until receipt of disaster?
Disaster funding.
Disaster conditional upon.
I can
the time-
accept that friendly amendment from Councillor Creed.
One more question.
Yeah.
Marian,
Yes.
do we owe them money?
Yes.
Why don't we
The
exchange,
disaster funding.
why don't we exchange checks?
It will happen when we know how much we're getting.
Yeah,
We don't know how much
kind
we're
of,
getting.
we kind of a sense, I think, that we need to wait until we see what disaster money really is going to amount to. And then we'll have a better idea of what
Yeah. The exchange will
the
be.
the checks would look like.
Can we wait that long? Or are we going to carry on with these feelings between us and the golf course?
No, but
Well, we
Marian's
just
indicated from her
fixed-
conversations with Ernie
Ernie Blair.
that we should know,
By
well,
tomorrow,
before
so-
next council meeting. We should know before next council
Yeah,
meeting.
so I think that's fair enough.
Any
We
other
can-
comments on the motion?
We can wait that long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they kind of know that we're waiting and that we'll act as soon as we can get word from disaster people.
I mean, anybody who has a business has to have a line of credit of some sort
Yeah.
set up,
Well, there's 7 of them,
you know.
and they owe $15,000, it's $2,000 a piece.
I mean, we're not talking a lot of money as a line of credit, but it's nice to have money. One is owed to you.
Okay, so,
Anything else up?
any other comments?
No.
I will call the motion regarding forgiveness of any late penalties on outstanding invoices dating back to March of 2012. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Item 7, Munix is a subscriber's agreement, and we need to sign the amended agreement, and we need a motion to do that. One of the changes in the amended agreement is the exit clause is amended, and so we will need a motion to sign the amended agreement. The chair will honor that.
I'll so move.
Councillor Dahl so moves. Any questions or comments, council, regarding the needed amended agreement?
Marian, it really doesn't change very much of the essence of that contract from what I could see.
No. But, yeah, what it is it's the self-insurance portion of our insurance. And basically, it's just cleaning up some wording from
Right.
the original.
Mhm.
But the major change really is, like the mayor said, the exit clause, where when we first signed the agreement, you had to sign for 5 years. Now, that's been removed, so it allows us actually to exit that program
Whenever.
if we choose.
Okay, so it's been moved by
Amendments.
Councillor Dahl that we sign the amended agreement. All in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. There is no financial report this meeting. Item number 9. The town council motion list is there for your scrutiny. The Moses Lake cleanup. There was talk of a breakfast at 8 o'clock, I think, to sort of get everybody out and get them ready to go, but there will be no breakfast. The cleanup is on that first Saturday in May, and it will be from 8 to approximately 10. It will be quite well organized from what I understand. There will be some cleanup along the creek as well. They will not be in around the residences like some other years have included. They will be picking up bags, and so they won't need much other than just some pickup trucks people are bringing. Anything else? Did I leave out anything else, Marian? And, you know, if possible, I think it would be nice. I'm going to try to be there because it is only going to be for a couple hours, so I think I'm going to try to be there on, what was that, was that the 5th or 4th of May? 4th of May. Councillor Kronen?
You know, to talk a little bit of a similar problem that we have in town, I don't know how many of you have driven by the second east, and the Sheen property has fences with barbed wire there, and it's full of plastic also.
That's something that we can put our bylaws on, isn't it?
And I don't know where the plastic comes from. I would imagine from the
County.
As long as the wind blows, we're gonna-
wherever the wind has picked it up.
Comes from the
But-
west.
Yeah, well, it comes from the west, no doubt. But it's really unsightly.
Now,
So that, I thought it would be a nice day to clean it up.
now 9C is pool construction. You'll note from the backgrounder, and Jeff's unable to be here, but you'll note from the backgrounder that there are 3 quite distinct proposals. We have engaged engineering consultation for Mr. Tego, the engineer, with Associate Engineering. So we have some professional input on which of the 3 proposals is the most reasonable and sound, I think are good words to be used. So we're, anything else, Marian, to sort of?
No, just we anticipate by next week, we will have a decision on our recommended proposal for awarding the contract. Once that decision has been made, we will ask that contractor to come make a proposal, or present their proposal to council so that you fully understand what is going to take place there. And then we would, at that stage, ask for a motion from council to award that contract.
Now, we hope to have that advice by next meeting, don't we?
Yes, we anticipate it'll be on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay, Councillor Kronen, then Councillor Dahl.
So if I understand, Marian, by next meeting, we will know what the different type of materials that are being used and what's the pros and cons of it all.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Now, these, okay.
I have one question, Mayor.
Yeah.
When I read this material, there was no talk about if there were cost overruns, how they were going to be covered. And I think it's important that be covered in the contract.
But we
Yeah,
can't
that's
disclose
in
it
each of the
before.
proposals, there's contingency in each of the proposals, so that would be presented at the time. We just were trying to give you a bit of a synopsis,
Yeah.
so that council is up to date on where we're at administratively with those proposals.
Okay, any further comment on that? And again, there's been a lot of work on this project. Jeff has, I don't know how many hours Jeff's got in on this, probably hundreds of hours.
Dave is taking the lead role on this, Dave Pelling.
Oh,
Oh,
good.
good,
Yeah.
good. That gets his feet wet in a big way, doesn't it? Okay, so 9D, we need RSVPs for the Economic Development Board Lunch and Learn, which is going to be held this, in 2 days.
Thursday.
At 11:45, Thursday. It'll be held here, and it's only going to last a couple hours. And so we need RSVPs on who can be here. I can be here.
I sent an email to Ryan, so I
I
don't
did
know.
too.
Okay, so,
I will not be able to make that one. I'll be teaching that day.
okay. All right, so we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so there's 5 of us, it looks like.
And the luncheon's out at 11, right?
11:45.
11:45.
11:45. Be right here, Marian?
Yes.
Okay. Market surveillance report, that's our standard market surveillance administrative code of conduct that we get quarterly, and so we'll need a motion to accept that. Councillor Kronen so moves. Any discussion or questions on that motion? I'll call that question. All in favor? That one carries. So let's get in now to the correspondence. You'll see some information there from the Institute for Advancement of Aboriginal Women, South Grow Regional Initiative. Do you want to speak to that for just a minute, Councillor Kronen?
Yes, this South Grow initiative is, okay, let me make sure because there's so many of things that are coming up. This is for the AGM, I believe.
No.
This one is not the AGM, no.
The
Okay.
community profile.
Yeah, this one is a community profile. South Grow was embarked into a project to kind of feature every community or town or little village that belongs to South Grow. There are 22 communities or villages or town involved in South Grow, and that is what the 2 following page represents what we are. The only thing, Marian, I know that South Grow had sent it to every town for upgrade, and we don't have the 2011 census or 2012 census. I
Well,
don't know what
because
it was.
it's the same.
It was about the same, so
Is it
therefore,
3578, right?
right, and so we are.
That's the most current number, Councillor.
So it still showed 2007, so on the top.
Okay.
You see what I was
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
say?
Yeah.
So,
So they didn't update the year, they just left it as 2007, is what you're saying?
well, I asked them, they said that they had the town review it, and that's the way it was kept, so they accepted the way it went. So it gives in a nutshell a little bit what our town is all about, and on the bottom you can see a statement by Jeff. Cardston is a diverse community rich in opportunities, and I think it's a very nice caption of what we are and who we represent. So there are a few different areas that I mentioned. Safety and security, well, we know it will have to be upgraded next year, but utilities are there, different addresses that you can contact or phone numbers that you can use, different services that are given in town. So in a nutshell, I think it's not a bad representation of who we are. What do you
I just had a
think?
question. I was just wondering under that major employees, we've got
Yeah.
extra foods listed, but we don't show IGA. And there it would be comparable in employment.
Well, there's something that I question myself is that, okay, there is that one, but another one that I wondered, that shows the health care and social services as the largest employer next to the retail and wholesale. But if you, and education as 9.8%, but if you look in the listing, it shows Westwind first and Chinook second, so I didn't really understand the logic there, but whatever.
Marian?
We would have taken those numbers for major employers based on
the
information that
global.
was provided to us. So Extra Foods obviously has more employees than IGA. It might only be a couple, I don't know, but that's why it would have been listed that way.
Right. And Westwind over the Chinook, because Westwind was looked at as a broader employer all around the district, right? That's what I thought, yeah.
Spelled wrong too.
The item from the municipal affairs people is just putting in writing the cutbacks that they've made to our budget and our grants. 11D, you can look carefully at that. 11E is a piece, it's giving us some information from the county. We have been carbon copied, CC'd by the county. They've sent a letter expressing concern on an issue of decreased funding for parks. Item number F is just alerting us to some zone meetings for AUMA on the MGA review. The closest one is Brooks. Probably not much different than the meeting we've already been to. It was held in Lethbridge a month or so ago. And then there's a final piece from another organization on Global Youth Assembly on Human Rights. If there's no other further questions or comments by council, the chair will entertain a motion. Councillor Court moves we adjourn. We're adjourned.